Hello, how are you? I'm going to be reading from this book. This book is The Essentials of Strength Training and Conditioning, 3rd edition. I'm going to start on page 128. This will be Respiratory Adaptations. Ventilation generally does not limit aerobic exercise and is either unaffected or only moderately affected by training. Interesting English. There we go. Ventilation generally does not limit aerobic exercise and is either unaffected or only moderately affected by training. Furthermore, the ventilatory adaptations observed appear to be highly specific to activities that involve the type of exercise used in training. That is, adaptations observed during lower extremity exercise will primarily occur as a result of lower extremity training. If exercise training focuses on the lower extremities, one will not likely observe ventilatory adaptations during upper extremity activities. Training adaptations include increased tidal volume and breathing frequency with maximal exercise. With submaximal activity, breathing frequency is often reduced and tidal volume is increased. Ventilatory adaptations result from local neural or chemical adaptations in the specific muscles trained through exercise. Neural adaptations. Nervous system adaptations play a significant role in the early stages of aerobic endurance training. At the outset, efficiency is increased and fatigue of the contractile mechanisms is delayed. Additionally, improved aerobic performance may result in a rotation of neural activity among synergists and among motor units within a muscle. Thus, the athlete produces more efficient locomotion during the activity with lower energy expenditure. Let's see. The next section is muscular adaptations. We'll do that. Muscular adaptations. One of the fundamental adaptive responses to aerobic endurance training is an increase in the aerobic capacity of the trained musculature. This adaptation allows the athlete to perform a given absolute intensity of exercise with greater ease. More impressively, after training, an athlete can exercise at a greater relative intensity of a now higher maximal aerobic power. Thus, measuring an athlete's maximal oxygen uptake before and after aerobic endurance training may not accurately portray his or her ability to perform during competition. For example, an athlete who can run the marathon at a pace equal to 75% of maximal oxygen uptake may, after training, be able to maintain a pace that is 80% of maximal aerobic power. This adaptation occurs as a result of glycogen sparing, less glycogen used during exercise, and increased fat utilization within the muscle, which prolongs performance. Consequently, the obla onset of blood lactate occurs at a higher percentage, up to 80 to 90% of maximal oxygen uptake of the trained athlete's aerobic capacity. This advantageous response may be due to the aerobic endurance athlete's muscle fiber type, specific local adaptations resulting from aerobic endurance training that reduce the production of lactic acid, changing in hormone release, particularly catecholamine release at high intensity exercise, and a more rapid rate of lactic acid removal. The muscular component of an aerobic endurance training program involves submaximal muscle contractions extended over a large number of repetitions with little recovery. Therefore, the relative intensity is very low and the overall volume is very high. The manner of training encourages relative increases in aerobic potential that are similar in type 1 and type 2 fibers. Compared to type 2 fibers, type 1 fibers have a higher pre-existing initial aerobic capacity, to which the increase in aerobic potential from training is added. Thus, type 1 fibers possess an oxidative capacity greater than that of type 2 fibers, both before and after training. However, if the intensity is sufficient, as in running repeated 800-meter intervals, fast twitch fibers, especially type 2X fibers, also make a significant contribution to the effort. Under such conditions, their aerobic capacity also increases with training. But chronic aerobic endurance training reduces the concentration of glycolytic enzymes and can reduce the overall muscle mass of these fibers. Those are the type 2X. Alright, so be careful with the amount of cardiovascular endurance stuff you're doing if you're trying to get type 2 fibers, type 2Xs first. Conversely, selective hypertrophy of type 1 muscle fibers occurs due to their increased recruitment during aerobic activities, although the resulting cross-sectional diameter is not as great as seen in type 2 fibers adapted to resistance exercise. Also, the change is smaller than the hypertrophy of type 1 fibers from a bodybuilding style resistance training program. There is little evidence to show that type 2 fibers change into type 1 fibers as a result of aerobic endurance training, but there may be a gradual conversion within the two major type 2 fiber subgroups, type 2Xs and type 2A fibers. This adaptation is significant, and the type 2A fibers possess a greater oxidative capacity than type 2X fibers and have functional characteristics more similar to those of type 1 fibers. The result of this conversion is a greater number of muscle fibers that can contribute to aerobic endurance performance. At the cellular level, muscular adaptations to aerobic exercise include an increase in the size and number of mitochondria and increased myoglobin content. Myoglobin is a protein that transports oxygen within the cell. Mitochondria are the organelles in cells that are responsible for aerobically producing adenosine triphosphate, ATP, via oxidation of glycogen. When the larger and more numerous mitochondria are combined with an increase in the quantity of oxygen that can be delivered to mitochondria by greater concentration of myoglobin, the capacity of the muscle tissue to extract and use oxygen is enhanced. This adaptation is further augmented by increases in the level and activity of the enzymes involved in the aerobic metabolism of glucose and a parallel increase in glycogen and triglyceride stores. Cool. All right, we'll leave it there. That's page 128 to 130. Respiratory adaptations, neural adaptations, muscular adaptations. All right, see ya.